So excited. As you can see, Bob has joined us, Bob Jacobs. I want to introduce this session. He is a McGraw-Hill author of Operations and Supply Chain Management and Operations and Supply Chain Change Management, and none other than Bob Jacobs. He is going to walk us through some of the COVID-19 trends in supply chain and how he applies them in the classroom. And Bob, I'm going to go on mute and let you take it away.
Anyway, I was listening in on the last session and for a while, and it was really neat, a lot of the things you were talking about. And there are some things that I want to talk about that certainly relate to that in a big way. I feel a little bit lost here because I can't see the chat session. I'm used to doing these things with the chat session up so I can actually look at it. So what I'm trying to do over here on the other side is log on to this session again, and with a different computer, then I'll be able to do that. But I'll get that going. It's going to take a couple seconds here for my other computer to get going. Anyway, today, let me get started here a little bit. I guess we have about an hour here. I'd like to save a little bit of time for questions here at the end, and I'll try to do that. But the three kind of major areas that I'd like to discuss with you. One has to do the impact remote teaching experience is having on education institutions globally. Just kind of my views on this, and it might be something that we can discuss more later on. And obviously, you were discussing this to some extent, in the last session. But anyway, my views on that. And then a second topic is just the recent impact on operations and supply chain management during the pandemic. Just some things that relate to the topics that we teach in operations management. I think that there are some really major things that we've got. Okay, I got this going here. And I'll be honest with you, right now I'm working on the core, a new edition of the core, and I've been thinking a lot about how to get this stuff, how to get some of these things that are kind of changes and things we should possibly consider in teaching our courses into the book. And so anyway, I'll talk about some of those things. And then at the end, I have really just one slide, but just a short thing where I'd like to talk about the impact technology is having on higher education courses and what my thoughts are about that. And I think what you might find some pretty interesting thoughts, about that. Now, in terms of remote teaching, the first topic that we've got, I don't know where you guys are. It would be kind of neat I guess you guys are all over the country and maybe some people from out of the country. I'm down in Florida right now. And so anyway, but it's kind of neat that, we can be doing this kind of, we can be doing this type of teaching. And I've done, quite a bit of online teaching from, pretty much so anywhere in the world. And, last year I can remember I was in Zagreb, Croatia, teaching in the middle of the night, Zoom sessions back to a class, and anyway, it just felt really kind of strange, but it was kind of fun. The students enjoyed, they were all here in the U.S. and everything, and so you can make it, I think, kind of a fun experience from it. But it appears it's going to be the norm in the future. A lot of remote teaching. The pandemic has really caused a quick acceleration in what I think was already been a movement to do this, and this shift, the other big deal, the shift from print to digital will continue at a quicker pace. It's kind of incredible when I look at, book sales and everything, the percentage that are now digital sales as opposed to the print edition sales. So these kind of things that will work are kind of major trends that's going to happen. One thing in terms of remote teaching, operations and supply chain management, I think really lends itself to this online experience, whereas in many other types of courses, it's much more difficult to do it. Much of the material involves learning of concepts and techniques and examples on repetition is used. We don't really, labs are not something that we need in our so remote teaching, online teaching, OSM's got good topics for doing that kind of stuff. Of course, case studies are a part of what the lab experience, the face-to-face experience would be in many situations, and we can't really do that. But I've found that discussion forums really work well. They have to be moderated, and you have to make students serious about participating in them. And I mean more than just posting an answer to a question, but rather interacting with the rest of the students in the class to get a true discussion going. I think this solves, you were talking earlier, but a lot of the problem of connectivity in the classroom, connectivity between the students and all that, you can really get a lot of that going through these moderated discussion forums and really making it worth the students' while to participate in making them, a good experience for the student. But you have to work at it and set very early on what the norms are going to be so that they really take, participating in discussion forums seriously. Now, in terms of the remote teaching, as you saw in the last session, there's a lot of different rubrics that people use. And this is what's amazing about the whole area. As an author, I look at it, and it's kind of incredible to me to see how different it is that people approach the class in terms of the topics that they teach, the way they teach the topics, and things like that. But in terms of a rubric, or kind of the cycle that I see, this is what I see. And what you guys were saying earlier about there being a regular cycle, the students know that the same thing is going to happen in every module or every week, is extremely, extremely important. So they don't have to constantly looking back at the website to see when things are due and stuff like that. But I see at least one type of Zoom lecture that's done, done each week. Now, in terms of, what I tend to do on these Zoom type lectures is to not really use them to cover a lot of new material or techniques and all. I typically would use, tutorials, online short tutorials and things like that, or actually just tell them they should read it in the book. But rather, I like to use the lecture to, number one, clean up any things that was left from the previous week. Maybe, a review of some tough question that they had difficulty with on the assignment or whatever, but then use it to actually give the students hints and examples which will help them complete the assignment, the next assignment that's due, so that there's a lot of value to them attending the lecture. If all you're going to do is just cover a bunch of slides that replays the stuff that's available in the book or that's available through some type of a canned online tutorial, they'll probably not get very interested in doing that. But if, on the other hand, you're really working at, okay, here is how to approach this case, or here's how to approach this analytical, or whatever it is. Here's how to approach this material. This is the kind of thing that gets them engaged, and it's extremely important. By the way, I also like, there was some question about what you do at the beginning of these things. This is important. I like to open up all the cams so people can see each other. Now, of course, you got 600 students, you can't do that. But, if you've got a smaller class, you can. So people can see that we are part of a class. And, if it's adults or, an older group, you might have them, show their dogs or show their kids or whatever. But something to really more personalize the thing. So they get to know you, you can get to know them, and and they realize that you're a real person. You're just not, a robot that's sitting back there. But anyway, the Zoom session is very, very important, and I like to keep it small. An hour or so, 45 minutes. And that it's very important. Now, in terms of this cycle, weekly online problem sets to be completed. These are to show competency. These I would expect for those of you who are using McGraw-Hill stuff. You could use Connect for this, or I know a lot of people use their own problem sets for this, but Connect is really, really good for this. But through the problem sets is where you can get the students to make sure they learn the techniques, they learn the concepts, and they can prove to you with the auto grading and everything that they've actually developed the competency in it. Now, these online tutorial sessions, I mean, as I said before, here we want to have, this is where, you can go over the actual material that you've got, give them examples of how to do things. Actually, I see one session, a Zoom session, in the online tutorial. One session a week is what I've always done for it. You could actually do two if you wanted to. Bi-weekly, it depends on how you split up the course. You might do a module every week in some cases, but some modules take 2 weeks. And as I said before, a discussion forum to enforce the engagement. And these are actually completed for grade. By the way, one interesting thing that I found with the discussion forums is that I really don't get involved with the discussion forum. I don't put my own comments on there, other than adding extra questions when we've reached a certain point in the discussion. And sometimes, when I add that question, I will bring together some things that have been discussed by other students. But my goal here is to try to get the students to think that they own the discussion forum. It's them. They're not really playing to me. They're playing to the rest of the other students in terms of what they say and the points they bring out and things like that. And then I certainly just try to guide the discussion, in a particular direction that I want it to go. And this thing is, of course, completed by grade and on. Now, one thing that I heard you guys talking about in the last session is about emails. I think emails are very good, but I like them to do it individually with me, where they send me an email. But I do get them thinking with the idea that if they send me one of these emails, they may get, and usually will get, a very, very quick, short answer to it. Probably won't be very comprehensive in terms of what I give them. Now, it might be a reference to something. It may be a sentence or two or whatever, because I make them realize that I'm literally getting, hundreds of these things, possibly, over a few days as these things occur. And if I then use these emails, and by the way, in this way, it's very often, I think you end up getting to know the students better in an online course than often you did even in a face-to-face course, because you hear these things, you see these things, you see what they're asking questions about and all. Now, when I get in the same email or the same question from a whole lot of students, that's when I will go up, on the website and post an answer that all the students see, in a forced email, and I think this is important. Also, if I see, and I think this is a fairness issue, where there's a few students asking important questions that's really a key to the assignment or whatever, and the other students are not asking it, that's when I will, go up on the website and force a comment to be pushed out to all the students, because I think it's important that just because a student, asks a lot of questions, that they're not getting an advantage, and of course that those who are much quieter don't get. But this engagement with me and the engagement with the other students in the discussion forums is extremely important, I think. Now, by the way, in terms of the exercise that we're talking about up here, I use a lot of the analytical exercises that are in the different books for that. I've also used some of the Harvard games that are available for that. And then I've used some of the games also that are up on my website, the supply chain drug pricing game and the disaster relief game are ones that I use as well. So there's a lot of these type things available. What I like about these online exercises is that you can sometimes get really good competition going between the students. And this is good, where, they can see, okay, well, I got this, it's an absolute score. Another student got something else, what did they do? Did they put more time into it? And, anyway, you can discuss these things in the Zoom sessions that you actually do to kind of get some competition going between the students so that they take some pride in what's actually going on. In terms of exams, you guys have talked about this already. I don't have a whole lot of experience with online proctored exams, but I've never taught like 200 or 300 students, in a class like this, at least not recently. I've done that, years ago, but never have. But it sounds like you guys have some pretty good ideas about how to do online proctored exams or having people do exams and then send them up to you and things like that. So that's one option. What I've tended to do in these classes, and these are students up to about 60 students, are multiple graded exercises, say bi-weekly exercises that the students have to turn in for a grade. And I use a very structured grading rubric for it so that it's very quick to grade the things and give them feedback as quickly as I can on them. But I kind of, like this, where you end up with, maybe 6, 7 of these things, over a semester that they've turned in. And so it's not like they got killed on one assignment or one type of thing. There, was a whole lot of things that they were working on. So this, combined with the graded discussion forums, can give you a pretty good way that you can actually grade the students at the end. Of course, it may not be, well, if you guys have teaching assistants and stuff like that, you can actually grade quite a bit of stuff through that. Do that as well, but very structured grading on these, and as I said, most of these things are analytical exercises. If you guys have any questions about what I use in terms of the grading rubric, just send me an email. I can certainly show you exactly what I use, at least in those. But that's what I tend to use, other than the like I said, the games and the Harvard stuff where it's obvious. They're it's a score that they get on it. So anyway, that's the remote teaching. Now, in terms of course duration, semester duration, some things that I kind of see, I think we're going to be seeing a really accelerated movement to half semester courses, which has been pretty big in graduate courses, but I think we're going to see more of that in undergraduate courses as well. So, shorter courses, more focused in terms of what the content is about, more competency-based learning. You want to show that you've learned a certain amount in order to, be able to report this in terms of learning objectives, for your course and to meet ACSB requirements and things like that for the different majors that you've got. So I kind of think we're going to see more of these short half semester courses in the future. It'll be interesting to see how that develops. Certainly you've already seen this changes in the timing of semesters, the fall where you start earlier, end at Thanksgiving, and these kind of things. It seems like that's pretty common in terms of what's taking place right now. And then in spring, no spring break, and Okay, let me stop at this point. I mean, Noelle,
we've got one
you guys
question.
got anything that's come up so far?
Yeah, one question that came in from Carol Chavez in the chat asking, and this is a question for all of the attendees too, so if you want to answer in the chat, that would be great. Anyone teaching hybrid synchronous? And if so, how do you do group work? Or do you do any small group work? So Bob, I don't know if you have got experience with this or just small group work in general, how you kind of try to implement that online, or if you have any thoughts. But anyone else, if you want to chat, enter your responses in the chat box.
To be honest with you, I have not done a lot of group work online. I've done more move to individual work. And the reason for that largely is, still trying to get this other computer to go here so I can see the chat. Okay. The reason kind of is because I think they do a tremendous amount of group work in the marketing classes and some of the other classes. I know at IU this was really true and everything. And so, I wasn't so worried about it. But, certainly group work and all is something that's extremely important. I recognize that, for students to learn how to work in groups, especially, today in these times and everything. But I really haven't done a whole lot of it. I've done mainly individual work, in online classes. Okay, I got this working now. Okay, guys.
We got double Bob now. Love it.
Yeah. Let me see if okay, I can see what you guys are doing on chat now. And so
excellent.
If somebody wants to send me something, please say hi, Bob, everybody.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of people who chimed in. So Lucinda Montgomery and Peggy Lee are both doing Zoom breakout rooms for group work. And Peggy says she does synchronous and asynchronous components. So I know we had some discussion around that on the panel session earlier too, which is great.
Yeah, it's certainly.
And then Bob, there's an earlier question. If you scroll up, and I don't know if the chat, like the full chat will show up or only from this point forward.
No, this forward, yeah.
Okay, so Terry Moran was asking if you do open book exams, and this is again for anybody on the attendee side too. And if you don't, how do you guard against cheating? So if you don't want students to be doing open book, how do you guard against that? Anybody using like a service? Yeah.
Comments on that? As I said, I have them turn in assignments, and I look a lot for cheating and things like that, and I'll call them on it. If I see two students that have the exact same answers and stuff, I call them on it. And no, I don't see anything coming up on the chat.
Everybody's looking for a solution, right?
Yeah.
I know we had a couple of people.
Yeah, I don't use open book exams.
Yeah. During the panel session, they mentioned, they have students either scan or upload or take a picture of some of the, work that they're doing by hand, and they use that as a way to kind of deter. Amit says he's got 4 or 5 different versions of an exam. So that's another way. Yeah.
I used to do that, in the face-to-face classes where I would have multiple versions of the exams. And, what's funny, once they realized that there was just none of that kind of cheating that took place in the classroom because they never knew, I would make the exams look exactly the same and just change a few things. And so, that just killed all that. So multiple versions of the exams is a really good way to do things because they have to be very, very careful. Yeah. Good. Okay. Make it available for 18, but due in 12. Okay, that's good. Very good. This thing has all come alive now. Now I can see that there are people out there. This is good. Okay. All in Canvas. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And a couple of people are chatting. They use Lockdown Browser and a Respondus monitor. So that's
you've been using. Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. With open book quizzes and then exams they use.
Yeah, for the why can't we see everyone's chat comments? If you open up the participant window, which is an option there, and then click on chat on the bottom, you'll open up the window to do that for those that haven't figured out how to see the chat. Grading's tough. I mean, I get that cycle, I have everything due like on Sunday and then go crazy on Monday, getting everything graded. And that's just the way it works. Yeah.
Bob, do you see the question around topics and what are essential topics for a 300 level OSCM survey course?
No, I didn't see that.
All right, so.
Even the core, which is how many chapters is that? 12, 13 chapters is a lot of material for a course. I see like 8 major topics, 7 major topics, something like that you can do in a course. And it kind of depends. If you're more of a quant type person, then you will spend more time on inventory and forecasting and MRP and these kind of things. On the other hand, you want to teach more of a managerial course, and you'll spend more time on strategic capacity and strategy and these types of topics. So I think that the course can vary quite a bit, just depending on what you want to emphasize, in your teaching. And if you want to spend some time where you do a major exercise that ends up taking a whole week, for example, maybe one of the Harvard, exercises or the new McGraw-Hill exercise, basically, you're going to have to focus on that thing for a week or for a period of time to get it done. But it really depends on what you're comfortable teaching. So it's hard to say exactly, what the course lineup, what the topic lineup is. Okay, hybrid and pure online. Okay, let me move on here. I'm going to run out of time otherwise. Is that okay? Okay, impact on operations and supply chain management that COVID has had. I don't know about the rest of you. We're just trying to stay safe down here in Florida. And we're in Florida here, and things are pretty wide open right now. But anyway, this thing has had a major impact. One of the things it's quite interesting that we hadn't really thought about much in risk management is the sudden shifts in demand. For example, restaurants suddenly closed, and so the commercial supply and demand dies, for these restaurants that we're feeding these restaurants, and the retail grocery store demand skyrockets. I think it's interesting that we can really see the zero-sum game in some of these sudden shifts where, one channel dies, another channel takes off. And so we saw some of that, meat, poultry supply chains. To give you, when you look at this meat, poultry, you see farmers, the packaging from the farmers, distribution, and customers. One would think that it would be easy to switch from, the demand going to restaurants, which died, to grocery stores and all. But actually, it turned out to be a nightmare. Now, if you look at it a little bit more carefully, you can see that in the commercial, you had contract farmers, in other words, farmers who are working for a particular group of commercial customers, which tends to be big in the industry now. And of course, bulk packaging, because it's commercial, full truckload distribution, and then out to the commercial customer. When you look at retail, again, contract farmers, but these are typically different farmers. Retail packaging, so the packaging is different, less than truckload distribution, and then out to the retail customer or to the restaurant. So and with all the emphasis on minimizing cost, what's happened is that these things have become really specialized where great, and they're looking for great repetition and all that kind of stuff, but specialized for the particular channel that they're actually working in. So adapting to the change really took some time and made it very difficult because of all the specialization. And we can expect it. So I think that's one thing that we're going to have to talk about. There's all kinds of other examples of this, by the way, the zero-sum game. Oil distribution. China shut down. Oil was diverted to the United States. The U.S. shut down. No place to put the excess oil, so you got oil tankers floating around in the oceans, with oil full on. The N95 masks and infectious disease protective equipment. Dramatic, sudden increase in demand. Of course, here hoarding created massive stockouts. China needed it. People that were making these things needed it, so they're going to keep it for themselves. So massive stockouts. Really a quick ramp up in production. In places where the supply was limited, but there's not any material. because material suppliers, the materials are just not available for manufacturing. And then it's kind of interesting how consumers move to alternate sources. You see people making their own masks and all kinds of things to get around the problem. But again, extreme change in demand is the theme here. Anticipated shortage of ventilators, sudden decrease in demand or increase in demand. Government allocates the supply and forces production like GM and all, toilet paper. Anyways, a lot of examples of this extreme change in demand that we've got. A lot of service sectors examples of this, and these are interesting things to talk about. Healthcare, the intensive care unit beds. Basically, the hospitals shut down non-life-threatening procedures, shift capacity to the COVID-19 care. And things like, very quickly, the hospitals got a good handle on that. Restaurants that we already talked about. Airlines are another really interesting one that we see right now, where, airlines like American Airlines, some of the bigger carriers who had the, longer routes, of course, for those that had global routes, totally, shut down that. But the people who are really faring now are the Southwest, Ryanair, the people at short point-to-point routing, that could, single type planes, 737, Airbus 320 were basically the planes that they're using for these things. And so efficient, smaller capacity, fewer services are what are becoming the norm. By the way, this was kind of interesting. This is what we were saying, 15 years ago when Southwest really started their stuff and all. And of course they kept expanding and getting bigger and having bigger routes and all this kind of stuff. But kind of going back now, and it's going back to these shorting these more focused types of carriers. So there's good service sector examples of how things changed as there's extreme shift in demand. I like to fly airplanes. We got a lot of airline pilots down here, in the area where I live. It's kind of interesting to hear these guys talk about it because they've been furloughed. And the airline industry is really a mess right now. Hopefully, we can get some money in there to keep them going. Now, other than supply chain demand shift, a second, I think, major operations issue was decreased capacity. So demand shifted in these different supply chains and all, but the second part that we had to deal with was capacity. In the production processes, what is this? I'm just looking at the thing. Because people stockpile. Well, yeah, I mean, we can see it there. And there's been some stuff, by the way, Terry, about this, about big bullwhips that they anticipate are going to be occurring because of the stockpiling and all that potentially is taking place, by customers and all. And that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Those will be great stories to talk about with your students. The other thing, in terms of this, but in restaurants, did you see the current thing about restaurants going to 90-minute type scheduling stuff? The type of things we teach in Benihana and all. This is another thing that's quite interesting that's taking place, and it relates here, of course, to the decreased capacity, but changes in the production process here. I'm getting back here on the slide here. Social distancing, workers cannot work so close together, and so things are spread out, and so the processes kind of slow down. Fewer workers because absenteeism and sick workers. And so what did companies do? Well, some basic operations type thing: produce fewer products, only the most popular ones, try to meet most of the demand. And of course, as we cut the number of products that we're making, we can be more efficient. Also, we saw some things where only the high-end, most profitable products were readily available. Some of the other ones were not quite as much. Companies like Harley-Davidson, if you go to McDonald's, even now their menu is so streamlined, and and it's the meals and things like that they're selling in those. Reduced seating capacity in restaurants that I just was talking about, reservations for specific 90-minute slots in order to get more type on stuff. These are great discussions to have with students about, what if you go to 60-minute slots versus 90-minute slots? Number one, once you get it to where they understand the capacity implication of shorter slots, then you can really talk about the behavioral implications of it. So these are great things to talk to students in the classes, about, and they relate directly to things that they can see that's going on right now. I think there's some other bigger picture shifts that the pandemic has accelerated, and this is just things that were taking place, but they've really been accelerated in time. I think we've got kind of a new asset-light economy. Basically, by the way, this asset-light economy. This was an article in the Wall Street Journal. I actually saw it in the Wall Street Journal, I think yesterday or this morning, but it came out in an article earlier in the week. But the idea of this is that value is increasingly derived from digital platforms, software, other intangible assets rather than physical assets and traditional relationships. This is really changing, the landscape of operations and supply chain management, and we have to be talking about this. You have things like CarMax, which is a traditional used car type of nationwide service versus the online retailer Carvana. Carvana is a car dealership without car lots. Everything is done virtually. The cars are shipped, the cars are delivered right to the customer, and all this kind of stuff. It's incredible. So this is a major shift where information, the platform is allowing things to take place. By the way, you still have the same issues of you've got to move the cars, you've got to get payments, you got to do all that kind of stuff. It's just that it's all done virtually. Uber, here's a taxi company without taxis. Quite interesting. Whole different type of paradigm. And when you start looking at return on assets and cash to cash cycle time and all these kind of efficiency measures and everything, it just turns everything on its ear, where it's different in terms of the way these things are done. Of course, VRBO, here's a hospitality company. It doesn't have any hotels. They don't have the Marriotts and all that, but they're doing a lot of the exact same type of thing. They're providing places for people to be able to live. Virtual companies, value in these virtual companies is based on the idea, the brands, data, human capital, not really on assets. And from an operations and supply chain standpoint, we want to focus on the types of services, the types of infrastructure that they have to provide in order to make these types of new paradigms working. Just saw, about Disney, who tremendous problems, with supporting the theme parks and everything. And so how they're shifting their emphasis to streaming and all this. By the way, there's a lot of ops issues here. They got to create, that the content that's in there. And so this is, more service types of processes that are happening here. Other common ones that we can talk about, Tesla, the way they've gotten rid of dealerships and gone online to everything, or really reduced the use of dealerships. And of course, Amazon is the classic example of this. So this is a gigantic shift that, and the pandemic has just made it happen quicker. Rather than taking 10 years or 5 years for this all to switch, it's going to happen in just a few years and really quickly. Companies how to operate without customers virtually instead of in person. This is quite different. I mean, these students, they're going to be affected by this. Jobs, they'll never, they may never have an office, but I'll be working from home. So it's quite different. So kind of in summary, I put together this slide to kind of look at the topics, and you guys key up your questions here because we'll take a break. We'll take some questions here in a minute. But in terms of risk management, demand shifts need to be considered. In the past, we mainly considered supply chain disruptions, but the idea of demand shifts, is something that's new. This idea of channel inflexibility, emphasis on efficiency has a major, major impact on flexibility. And I think we've always kind of said this, but we kind of gave it lip service. We have real good examples, though, of this now. And I think it's something that we have to more emphasize, this efficiency, flexibility issue that comes up. And then the other thing, information system transparency versus specialization. These are risk type things where our information systems get very, very specialized, very efficient at what they work, maybe lose some transparency because of it, and how this can lead to gigantic change or gigantic problems if we have to quickly change that information system. By the way, this could get worse as we look at using blockchains and things like that, which embed more infrastructure into the information system as well. You lose a lot of flexibility there. So in risk management, that's one area that I think we have to, to me, I can't do it in the core, but possibly in the next version of the big book, maybe a whole chapter just on risk management rather than putting it, in something that's just part of strategy, because this is going to be a big, big topic. In terms of workplace, layout design, we said design for health and safety of workers, new work rules related to infectious diseases, the safety of customers, work at home paradigms, all these kind of things are things that we can talk about that. Now, it turns out most of you, at least in the core courses, don't talk a lot about these types of issues. Some people do in a larger course, or where it's split across, you have a supply chain course and an ops course, do get into these types of things. Surprisingly, a lot of people, there's some industrial engineering people who use the books as well, and they get into these kind of things as well. But it's something that's got to be considered. Now, in terms of the new business models, which is over here on the right, these platform businesses, virtual businesses that work off these types of business models, I think, are extremely important that we talk about, because face it, our students, this is what they're going to be doing in the next few years. A lot of businesses will be working this way. I think there's another very interesting new topic that I've been trying to learn as much as I can about, and all, and that has to do with supply chain finance. And it's kind of interesting. This is, the idea of being able to finance receivables, finance work in process and distribution inventories, finance payables, which kind of makes the idea of a cash-to-cash cycle time and everything go crazy, because we can finance these things and we could have zero, they get paid immediately. Inventories are costing us nothing because we're financing them, at very, very low interest rates. And distribution, once it leaves the factory, it goes into a distribution type of information system where a bank is financing everything that's in that distribution system. Anyway, these types of things, particularly when we look at global being done, the Bundesbank, Germany, anyway, a number of the European large financial institutions have whole large groups that are doing this kind of stuff. And so eventually we should talk about this, in our courses. I'm not sure exactly how to bring it in, but and it'd be interesting to hear what you guys think about that. But it's a big, big topic that's hitting, it's been going since about 2014, I discovered, but it's really becoming a big deal right now with companies, and it solves a lot of the financial, the cash flow problems, liquidity problems that companies potentially have. Okay, let me stop at this point. You guys got anything, Harper, that I haven't been looking too well at?
Yes, we've been getting a good number of questions. Harper, do you want to go through these? Do you want me to? What works best for you? No.
Hi, if you could read them, that'd be great.
Yeah,
That's
done. Okay.
Everyone, thanks.
Perfect. Yeah, we're trying to re-chat them to everyone because I know we're having issues with the chat and not everybody can see what's coming in. So I'm going to start with some of the newer ones, and then Bob, we've got some questions that came in kind of on the earlier part of the session that you may have already addressed, but we'll go back to them. So one
Yeah.
question, what do you see as the secondary effects on the agricultural supply chain of the rapid shutdown of the value chain in retail food or restaurants?
I see, that, the big problem there is inflexibility, when you have a wife that grew up in Iowa, you end up, hearing people talk about farms and things like that. But if you look at these things, a lot of this is very specialized these days. Where I'm growing corn for Frito-Lay, and or I'm growing corn for the hard producers, or whatever. It's very specialized, and so flexibility as these things change is as the demand changes because the customer changes, it's a gigantic problem. We can get into all kinds of issues about global changes in demand with shifting tariffs and things like that are going on, but that just gets into a whole other can of worms. So it's tough. I think we're into more subsidies for farmers to keep. We got to have a viable farm, production thing here in the United States. That's for sure. Anyway, what else we got?
A question that came in a little bit earlier from Amit. I'm curious how in fine dining restaurants they do the inventory capacity planning to serve salmon, steak, or lobster to different customers based on a sit-down menu ordering. Any thoughts on that?
Okay, yeah. Sit-down menu. What? Are you referring to if you have a fixed cycle time, like a 90-minute cycle time? I think. You should read the article, because what they're finding is that customers, when they take these reservations for 90 minutes, for example, are more and more coming into the restaurant having read the menu, looked at what the specials are going to be online, so that they can get right on it and order right away to maximize the time that they're in there. I mean, I guess the next logical thing would be to pre-order what you're going to get, but I think we'll see shifts in behavior as you do that. The other thing that's very interesting about this is that restaurants, because they're cutting the people off earlier. What about the old normal? Yeah, because they're cutting people, trying to get people out of there earlier. They're offering them take-home drinks, the specialty drink of the restaurant and stuff like that, so that they can take these nice things that they would normally sit around the restaurant. They can take them home or somewhere else and do this thing. And they're finding that it increases their revenue, that it actually makes sense. Or they can even give them free one of these things, because they realize, what's going on here. But it's interesting, yeah. And the new normal is quite different, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think your issue. This is a peak load problem, right? This is, when in restaurants and stuff like that. There's a lot of times when the restaurant's not that busy, and so you're really talking about these periods of time when the restaurant is running at peak load. I don't live in a big city, so you guys who live in Chicago, New York, and stuff in big cities, you have to deal with this a lot more than we do here.
Right, and the follow-up question on that for anybody who can't see it: problems on Friday and Saturday are not the same as problems on Tuesday or Sunday evening.
Yeah, I just saw that pop up there. But different game. Yeah. Okay. Other questions?
Another one that came in just before that from Richard: does it make sense to emphasize flexibility for a once in 100-year problem? The cost could be big impact.
What's that have to emphasize flexibility because of what?
For a once in 100-year problem.
Yeah, what an interesting issue, isn't it? I by the way, I do think that flexibility is an important thing to talk about, but it's more in terms of the competitiveness of it, and the fact that, okay, it may be not a pandemic that you're dealing with, but in another way you're dealing with competitors coming out with new products, new technologies, new technologies becoming available that you want to take advantage of, and other types of things, which kind of can also argue that you should worry about flexibility to be able to switch to change so that you can actually take advantage of these things. So, but yeah, this question of, I've argued this a lot, that, maybe being able to take advantage of the efficiency and everything over a period of 5 years far outweighs the fact that you may be shut down for a month or 2 months because of some type of disruption or stuff. I think this has to enter into the things that you discuss with students about, because it's certainly important. And but just the idea of having a plan for how I'm going to deal with the discussion, you might not, you still do the low cost thing, but that, if we lose the demand here, or just like if we lost the capacity in a particular place, this is what we would do. This is the way, this is the next step that we would do. So you thought through that, not that you keep that capacity online all the time, but it's a great discussion item. And I think it's something that students can understand. That's what's good about it. It's not like a rocket science, that you're talking about here. Okay, that's good. Other questions?
Another one that came in from
I
Terry.
want to reserve about 5 minutes here for the last slide. Okay, so
yeah. Oh, perfect. Okay. So question that Terry asked a little bit earlier, the effect on brick and mortar manufacturing. So Tesla still needs to build their cars, right? They might sell different, but how about the manufacturing side of things?
Yeah, to me, the exciting, interesting thing about companies like Tesla are, I've written a new analytical exercise about the Tesla learning curve, because you can see, they got to build cars and they're going through learning curves and how fast they build them. And then there's also extremely interesting stuff about, expanding globally. And it's easy, it's cool to see with the company. Like, they started in the US, then, they started selling in Europe and China. And recently they built a plant in China, and now the demand is taking off in China on their cars to some extent, at least. Now they're starting to face competition. So, these are extremely interesting questions because, costs are involved and the rates of learning are changing, and, the relative pricing and demand and then there's going to be tremendous demand or tremendous competition coming in as GM. Well, I think the big platform we have to deal with is the platform that's come out in Europe. Their new E-platform is going to be really, really big in the world. But yeah, these are great things to talk about and things that I'm working on to bring into. I want to give you some material, but a lot of this is like the one I think that you were talking in the last session. You have to bring articles in and let them read what's really going on too, because a lot of stuff is real dynamic in terms of what's going on. Okay, can I move on now?
All right, go for it.
Okay. Now, I only got a couple of minutes here. It's kind of the last thing. Will the new digital teaching technologies improve or degrade college education? These are just kind of my thoughts on this. I know some of us, thought these things, but I believe without a doubt that these new digital online type things are going to improve college. I think it provides a much richer learning experience. The online tutorials, the problem sets, all these types of things provide just a great learning experience where the students can get information in the way they want it. Some students can just read the book, and get it. Well, they can do that. Other students really need repetition and things like that. They can get it. So they can get what they want. And so this is good. I think that you're going to see a lot more consistency across professors with these types of platforms. You can't have, 5 professors teaching the course and one teaching half the topics and another teaching, twice as many topics, because, the online platform, they're all using the same platform, forces them to they're going to all have to teach the same course. And you guys all know what I'm talking about, with how you can game the system and all these types of stuff in terms of the way you set things up. So a lot more consistency across professors. I believe too that there's going to be more accountability, both for the students and the professors. You can see what the students did, how much time they spent on it, whether they just blew it off and just quickly answered the questions and then went through it and put the answers in order to get the score or whatever. You can see it. You can see what the professors did in terms of how they were handling the students and all this kind of stuff. So I think the acceleration caused by the pandemic will make this transition much quicker. I believe you're going to see a lot of competency focus in programs and courses, as opposed to, in other words, you have to be able to show you learned something, you learned this, and these online platforms and everything allow this to take place because, because of the data that they're collecting and all. So I think this is a real good thing to do it. And I encourage you to take a look at Connect. We've spent a heck of a lot of time figuring out how to make this thing work over the last 10 years, and it's really quite good right now. But there are other types of online platforms as well. But I think these things are really going to be good for us in the future. So anyway, that's the end of the formal comments that I've got. If there's any other quick questions, I got another minute on my little clock here. I don't know what the official time is. Any other things?
We have got one question that came in kind of right at the end of your last session, if you can answer it quickly in 30 seconds. 3D printing is another tool worth exploring to address and streamline supply chain management issues under the pandemic. Any quick thoughts on that? And if not, we'll follow up afterwards.
Yeah, I didn't hear the very beginning of the question.
Sorry, about 3D printing. It's another tool.
3D printing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love 3D printing. I mean, I think that you can teach a lot with 3D printing. Bring one in the classroom and have the students go, wow, my grandkid bought a 3D printer, and I can show you the stuff sitting here on my desk right now. I love 3D printing, and I think it's going to have a gigantic impact on manufacturing in the future. I didn't believe it, 5 years ago, but now I do believe it, and also it's a great thing. Get one, bring it in the classroom. Or have a student show examples of it. Students know how to do all this kind of stuff. We don't, we're
good interactivity, right? Switch it over and have the students present.
Have students show it to the class, because this is great stuff, and it'll be real. Okay, great.
Fabulous. All right, Bob,
thank you so much for yet another amazing presentation from you today. One of the attendees said, as we shift to more digital teaching, let us not forget the human dimension piece. So that's a perfect way to end to end your session. But we are going to move on to a break now, and I just want to thank you again, Bob. Really appreciate. I'm hearing informative and useful session. So thank you so much, and we will take a break and then go on to our next session.
Okay, we'll talk to you. You guys all be good.
Thanks, Bob. Take care.
Thanks so much, Bob.
Yeah.